The Neither Missed Chronicles, Volume 1, The Last Pure Human by Lex Kojima-sama. Prologue, Part 1, The Day the Sky Died. July 18, 2029, 2 p.m. Ren Kisaragi had spent 3 years preparing for the end of the world. He just hadn't expected it to arrive while he was choosing cup ramen. The phone's incessant buzzing dragged him from sleep like a particularly vindictive alarm clock. 47 missed calls, all from the same number. His mother's contact photo glared at him from the screen, a woman whose disappointment could be weaponized if the military ever figured out how. "Still alive," he muttered, sliding the phone to silent without answering. "Sorry to disappoint." His apartment was a monument to mediocrity. 6 tatami mats of space, cluttered with the detritus of a life spiraling gently downward. Empty convenience store bento boxes formed precarious towers. Light novel volumes lay scattered like casualties of war. His laptop sat open on the low table, screen dark, but no doubt hiding another dozen emails from the university about his academic situation. Academic situation. Such a polite way to say complete failure. He stumbled to the laptop, squinting against the afternoon sun that had the audacity to shine through his blackout curtains. The email preview alone was enough. Urgent. Final notice regarding enrollment status. Delete. Missing final examinations. Delete. Career counseling services. We're here to help. Delete with extreme prejudice. 3 years of computer science down the drain, he said to the empty room. 67% attendance rate. That's a passing grade in some countries, right? The room didn't answer. It never did. He opened a new browser tab instead, muscle memory navigating to his usual ISEKAI web novel site. The latest chapter of My Cheat Skill Lets Me Rule the Apocalypse had updated. At least fictional NEETs are having a good time. Unlike me, they get overpowered abilities and harems. I get disappointed parents and student loan debt. The news played on his phone. He'd forgotten to close the app. Something about unusual weather patterns worldwide. Scientists baffled. Conspiracy theorists ecstatic. The usual end times playlist. Unprecedented atmospheric phenomenon observed simultaneously across all continents. Purple aurora borealis visible even in equatorial regions. Deep-sea expedition in Mariana Trench reports discovery of substance that violates known physics. Ren snorted. Violates known physics. Everything violates known physics if you're bad enough at physics. Like him. Another deleted email confirmed it. Physics 2, final grade, F. His stomach growled, reminding him that self-pity wasn't nutritionally complete. When had he last eaten actual food? Yesterday? 2 days ago? Time blurred together when you had nowhere to be. The clock read 2 p.m. Perfect NEET hours. He grabbed his wallet, 1,200 yen and some lint, and shuffled towards the door. His reflection in the hallway mirror looked like a character designers would create to represent bad life choices. White hair that defied both gravity and styling products stuck up at angles that challenged Euclidean geometry. 3-day stubble. Dead eyes that had given up on finding meaning somewhere between failing Calculus 3 and watching his girlfriend walk away. "You can't do this anymore, Ren. You're not even trying. You're just existing." Yui's last words, delivered with the kind of surgical precision that only someone who loved you could manage. 2 months ago. He deleted her contact, but kept the photos, because apparently he enjoyed emotional self-harm. Today's mission parameters, he thought, forcing himself into the mock military mindset that helped him function. Objective, acquire sustenance. Secondary objective, don't think about Yui. Tertiary objective, remember to buy cup noodles for Grandpa's memorial. Tomorrow marked 4 years since the old man died, the only person who'd never looked at Ren with disappointment, who'd ruffle his white hair and say, "Different doesn't mean wrong, kid. Sometimes it just means the world hasn't caught up yet." World still hasn't caught up, Grandpa. Starting to think it never will. Part 2. The Last Normal Afternoon. The convenience store's automatic doors parted with their familiar chime, a sound that had become the soundtrack to his decay. The clerk, a middle-aged woman who'd watched his descent from university student to that neat who buys cup noodles at 3 p.m., offered a smile that looked physically painful. "Hot today," she said, "because what else do you say to someone whose life is clearly in freefall?" Ren agreed, already navigating toward his shameful sanctuary, the instant food aisle. The selection hadn't changed. It never did. Beef, chicken, seafood, spicy seafood, and mystery meat, which was probably best left mysterious. His hand hovered between choices while his brain provided helpful commentary. Chicken, safe, boring, like my entire existence. Beef, classic, dependable, what Grandpa would choose. Spicy seafood, might actually feel something for once. His phone buzzed. Not a call this time. News alert. Breaking. Eclipse tomorrow at 1 p.m. Impossible astronomical event will be visible globally. He read it twice. That couldn't be right. Solar eclipses didn't work that way. They were localized events, visible only from specific geographical areas. A global eclipse was like saying water had decided to flow uphill for fun. Cosmic event of the millennium, a high school girl said to her friend, brushing past him toward the magazines. They say it's related to those weird aurora things. My mom thinks it's the end of the world, her friend laughed. She's been buying emergency supplies all week. End of the world. Ren stared at the cup noodles. Somehow, I always thought it would be more dramatic than this. He grabbed 3 cups, beef for tradition, spicy seafood for variety, chicken because dying of boredom seemed appropriate. Then he on impulse grabbed one more. Grandpa's favorite, classic soy sauce flavor. He'd leave it at the memorial tomorrow. The old man would appreciate the gesture, even if he couldn't eat it. The news kept playing on the store's TV, reporters struggling to explain the inexplicable. The mysterious substance recovered from the Mariana Trench, dubbed Neither Mist by researchers. Completely unprecedented, the eclipse path calculations suggest the moon will somehow be in perfect alignment simultaneously for all observers on Earth. Purple coloration matches the aurora phenomena observed globally. Neither Mist. Even the name sounded like something from the web novels he read. Next, they'd announce it granted supernatural powers or opened portals to another dimension. Find everything? The clerk's question snapped him back to reality. Yeah. He placed his pathetic haul on the counter. 4 cups of noodles and a canned coffee. Dinner of champions. Or neats. Mostly neats. She scanned them with practiced efficiency, that painful smile never wavering. That'll be 580 yen. He paid, collected his shame in a plastic bag and headed for the door. Tomorrow he'd visit Grandpa's grave, tell the old man about his latest failures, maybe pretend for a few minutes that someone still believed in him. The automatic doors chimed goodbye. Outside, the July heat slammed into him like a physical presence. The sky was the kind of perfect blue that made you suspicious, like nature was overcompensating. No sign of purple auroras or impossible eclipses, just another scorching Thursday that would blend into another pointless Friday. His phone buzzed again. Another call from his mother. Let it ring, he decided. What's she going to say? We're disappointed? You're wasting your potential? I've heard that soundtrack already. He turned toward home, plastic bags swinging with each step. Tomorrow was Grandpa's memorial. He'd go early, before the impossible eclipse that had scientists losing their minds. Place the cup noodles on the grave. Maybe apologize for becoming exactly the kind of person the old man had sworn Ren would never be. We're Kisaragi, kid. We don't give up. We protect. We endure. Sorry, Grandpa. Turns out I'm really good at giving up. Natural talent. The last normal sunset of his life painted Tokyo in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, in the deepest trench on Earth, purple mist swirled in carefully contained chambers, while scientists argued about whether physics textbooks needed a rewrite or reality did. In 12 hours, he'd have his answer. In 13 hours, the world would end. And Ren Kisaragi, professional disappointment and part-time human being, would finally discover what he'd been preparing for without knowing it. But for now, he had cup noodles to eat and regrets to nurture. Just another Thursday in the life of a NEET. Part 3. The Day the Sky Died. July 19th, 2029. Morning came like a hangover, unwelcome and painful. Ren's phone screamed at 6 a.m., the alarm he'd set months ago for classes he'd no longer attended. He killed it with extreme prejudice and lay staring at the ceiling, counting water stains like constellations of failure. Memorial Day. Get up, you worthless sack of meat. The soy sauce cup noodles sat on his desk, waiting. Grandpa's favorite. The old man had lived through the post-war reconstruction, built a family from nothing, watched Japan transformed from rubble to economic miracle, and his legacy was a grandson who couldn't finish university. Spectacular return on investment there. He forced himself vertical, stumbled through the morning routine. Shower, hot enough to hurt. Shave, poorly. Clothes, the least wrinkled option available. By 7 a.m., he almost looked human. The train to the cemetery was packed with salarymen who'd mastered the art of sleeping while standing. Ren found a corner and tried to become invisible, a skill he'd perfected over 3 years of social decline. His reflection in the window looked ghost-like, superimposed over the Tokyo sprawl racing past. His phone buzzed. News alert. Eclipse countdown. 6 hours. Global preparations underway. Scientists still cannot explain simultaneous visibility. Neither missed research team. No comment on correlation. Neither missed. The name had haunted his dreams. Purple fog rolling through empty streets, dissolving everything it touched while he stood untouched in the center, the last person left in a world gone silent. Just anxiety, he told himself. Too many apocalypse novels, not enough vitamin D. The cemetery was empty this early. Grandpa's grave sat in the newest section, the stone still sharp-edged and clean. Kisaragi Jiro, beloved husband, father, grandfather. Simple, direct. Everything the old man had been. Ren placed the cup noodles on the stone and lit the incense. The smoke rose straight up in the still air, like prayers had a direct line this morning. Hey, Grandpa. Brought your favorite, soy sauce. They changed the package design again, but it's the same fake mead and sodium bomb you loved. The grave didn't answer. They never did. So, update on your disappointing grandson. Failed another semester. Yui left. Can't blame her, really. Mom's called 47 times yesterday. I've gotten really good at the delete button. Laughter, the sound bitter as old coffee. Remember when you said I'd do great things? That my different way of seeing the world was a gift? Well, turns out it's more of a curse. Can't focus, can't connect, can't even pretend to care about the things everyone else finds important. A crow landed on a nearby headstone, regarding him with one black eye. But hey, the world might end today. Scientists can't explain this eclipse thing, so maybe none of it matters. Maybe failing at life was just preparation for failing at death. He stood, brushing dirt from his knees. Miss you, old man. You're the only one who ever made me feel like being broken was okay. The incense burned lower. Time to go. See you next year, if there is a next year. He turned away, leaving the cup noodles like an offering to a god who believed in worthless things. Part 4. 1 p.m. The convenience store was busier than usual, people stocking up on supplies like tourists preparing for a scheduled apocalypse. Ren grabbed his usual, spicy seafood this time because if the world was ending, might as well go out with some flavor. The TV above the register showed crowds gathering in parks and rooftops, eclipse glasses selling for ridiculous prices. Scientists in labs around the world monitored instruments that couldn't explain what was about to happen. Neither missed samples showing unusual activity. Electromagnetic anomalies detected globally. Advised to remain indoors during the event, though no specific dangers have been... The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the sky began to die. Ren dropped his basket, noodles scattering across linoleum as he pressed against the window. Above, the blue summer sky was being devoured by purple wound that spread like spilled ink. The sun, clearly visible despite every law of physics that said it should blind him, flickered like a dying bulb. What the hell? The purple deepened, spread, consumed. Not an eclipse, something far worse. The wound in reality grew until the entire sky was the color of old bruises, and still the sun flickered overhead, fighting against something that shouldn't exist. His phone exploded with alerts, messages in languages that hurt to read from numbers that weren't numbers. The veil tears, the mist rises, the worlds converge, he comes, he comes, he... The ground convulsed, windows shattered in perfect synchronization, glass becoming diamond dust, and from everywhere, the oceans, the earth, the very air, purple mist erupted into the world. It moved wrong, not like fog or gas, but like something alive and hungry. Buildings didn't collapse, they ceased. People had no time to scream before they simply weren't, existence erased between heartbeats. Move! Move! But the mist came from all directions. Behind him, the convenience store peeled apart layer by layer. Time stretched like taffy as his brain tried to process its own ending. The mist touched him. It didn't feel cold. It felt like the absence of temperature. Not dark, but the negation of light. It crawled up his legs with the patience of entropy, each touch erasing more of what made him real. So, this is how I die. Not heroically, not peacefully, but buying cup ramen on the day Grandpa said I'd do great things. His vision fractured. Reality became negotiable. One final thought coalesced. Should have gone with the beef. Then, nothing. Absolute, perfect purple nothing. The world ended not with a bang or whimper, but with a neat's last moment of snark.
Chapter 1. Between Nowhere and Nothing. Part 1. Awakening in Purple Hell. Consciousness returned like a drowning man breaking the surface, violent, desperate, unwelcome. Ren floated in a space between spaces, his mind trying to reassemble itself from component atoms scattered across probability. System error. Reality.exe has stopped responding. Would you like to send an error report? The joke came unbidden, his brain's desperate attempt to process the unprocessable. He died. He remembered that much. Purple mist, dissolving reality, the taste of extinction. But death was supposed to be more permanent. Unless this is hell, in which case 210s, terrible atmosphere, no Wi-Fi. Cold hit him like a sledgehammer made of absolute zero. Not winter cold, this was the cold that existed before temperature was invented. His eyes snapped open to purple-tinged darkness that writhed like living things. He lay on ground that couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Too hard for soil, too rough for stone, too wrong for earth. Purple mist coiled around him, each tendril leaving trails of tingling otherness across his skin. The stuff pulsed with its own heartbeat, curious and predatory. "Okay," he croaked, his voice sounding like someone had gargled gravel. "Tutorial level sucks. Where's the skip button?" Standing required negotiating with muscles that apparently had forgotten their purpose. Everything hurt with the deep existential ache of existing where existence was optional. The mist clung to him, making each movement feel like swimming through cosmic molasses. Visibility, 3 meters of purple hell before the fog ate everything. No landmarks, no signs, no convenient quest markers floating overhead. Just him, his miraculous intact cargo shorts, and the growing certainty that he'd been isekai'd by the universe's most pretentious truck kun. Right. Assessment time. Standard isekai checklist. Tick. Transported to another world. Tick. Mysterious circumstances. Tick. No tutorial. X. No system menu. X. No cheat skills. X. No convenient exposition fairy. Overall rating, 3 out of 10. Wouldn't recommend to friends. A sound drifted through the mist. Not quite wind, not quite whisper, entirely too much like reality clearing its throat. Time to move before whatever made that sound decided to investigate the new toy. He picked a direction, all equally terrible, and started walking. The ground shifted textures with each step. Crunch, squish, scrape, scream. Wait, scream? He decided not to investigate that particular texture. Part 2. First light, worst light. Time became meaningless. Could have been minutes or centuries. The mist made everything feel like that moment between sleep and waking where nothing quite made sense. But eventually the purple began to thin, fading to sickly lavender. Then he crested a ridge and his brain blue-screened harder than Windows Vista. The landscape before him had been designed by someone who'd heard descriptions of reality third-hand and decided to freestyle. 2 suns hung in a sky that shifted colors like an indecisive rainbow, purple to orange to something his eyes insisted didn't exist, but saw anyway. Mountains floated inverted in the distance, waterfalls flowing up into nothing. Crystal formations erupted from the ground at angles that made geometry cry. And the creatures, oh, good. Flying lizards that phased through solid matter because regular physics wasn't dying fast enough. They moved wrong, sliding through air like the concept of flight was more a suggestion than law. 7 eyes arranged in spirals that tracked his movement from inside his own skull. "Nope," Ren said firmly, "absolutely not. I did not sign up for Lovecraft's isekai adventure. I want a refund." The closest flying thing regarded him with what might have been curiosity or hunger. Hard to tell when the facial features kept rearranging themselves. Don't run. Running activates the chase instinct. Just back away slowly. And something howled in the distance. Not the sound an animal makes, the sound reality makes when you punch a hole in it. Or, Ren amended, we could run. Running's good. Cardio's important. He ran. Part 3. The Forest of Extremely Bad Decisions. The tree line appeared as salvation until he got closer and realized the trees were wrong too. Trunks wider than buildings twisted up into a canopy so thick that it created false midnight. The bark had patterns that looked almost like faces. Faces with expressions suggesting trees had opinions about trespassers, and those opinions were uniformly negative. But behind him, the purple mist crept closer, and those flying phased lizards had started making sounds like glass trying to remember how to break. From soft difficulty forest, or purple death fog. Choices, choices. He crossed the threshold, and the temperature dropped 20 degrees instantly. Not gradually, binary cold, like someone had flipped the hypothermia switch. His breath misted in air that tasted of copper and crushed dreams. The silence hit harder than the cold, not quiet, silent, the kind that made you painfully aware of your heartbeat, your breathing, the wet sound of blinking. Even his footsteps seemed muffled, absorbed by something hungry for sound. Great. Murder forest with a silence fetish. This keeps getting better. Something crunched under his foot. He looked down and immediately wished he hadn't. Bones. but from nothing that had ever lived on Earth. Too many joints, arranged in patterns that suggested their owner had strong opinions about conventional anatomy. Don't look at the bones. Don't think about the bones. Don't wonder what killed the bone's owner. Just walk, find water, find shelter, find a nice place for a complete mental breakdown. A branch snapped somewhere to his left, then his right, then directly above, which was concerning since branches shouldn't snap up. I'm being hunted by the forest itself. 10 out of 10 immersion, 0 out of 10 survival prospects. The arrow sprouted from his shoulder before he heard the bowstring. Pain bloomed like a flower made of fire and regret. Black fletching, shaft of wood so dark it seemed to eat light. The head, barely visible where it punched through muscle, gleamed with purple oil that definitely wasn't standard ammunition. Poison, he gasped, already feeling the wrongness spreading from the wound, because regular arrows are for casuals who want their victims to survive. His legs gave up their employment contract. The forest floor rushed up to introduce itself to his face. Through the gathering darkness, he saw them, shapes flowing between trees with liquid grace, eyes glowing with colors that didn't belong in any spectrum. Elves. It's always elves. Why couldn't it be friendly merchant caravans or convenient healing springs? His last coherent thought before unconsciousness claimed him was that dying twice in one day had to be some kind of record. Grandpa would be so proud. Darkness ate the world and Ren's isekai adventure scored its first critical failure.
Chapter 2. Dreams of Yesterday, Nightmares of Tomorrow. Part 1. The Purple Dream. Darkness had texture here. Velvet in acid, silk in shattered glass. Ren drifted through it, consciousness scattered like light through a prism. This wasn't sleep. Sleep was gentle. This was the space between death and whatever came next, and it had opinions. Am I dying? Again? Does it still count as once if it's the same day? The void answered by showing him Tokyo. Not his Tokyo. This one was empty. Streets littered with abandoned cars frozen mid-commute. Neon signs flickered their last desperate messages to no one. The convenience store where he died stood intact but wrong, windows reflecting purple light from a sun that had given up. He stood in the intersection where he'd once waited for Yui, back when waiting for someone meant something. Now the traffic lights cycled through colors that shouldn't exist, directing ghosts through a city that had forgotten how to be alive. "This isn't real," he said, but his voice came out purple too, stained by the mist that hung over everything like a burial shroud. "Real is negotiable," his own voice answered. He turned to find himself, another version, standing where Yui should have been. This Ren looked tired, clothes torn, eyes reflecting horrors that hadn't happened yet, or had happened, or were happening now. Time worked differently in Purple Dreams. "Let me guess," Dream Ren said. "You're wondering why survive when everyone else dissolved? What makes you special?" "I'm not special. I'm a NEET who couldn't even die properly." "Exactly." Other Ren smiled, and it was the expression of someone who'd learned terrible truths. "That's why you're perfect. You already knew how to exist outside the system, how to be nothing, while everyone else was trying to be something." The city shifted, buildings flowing like water. Now they stood in his apartment, but the walls breathed and the ceiling showed stars that were eyes that were stars. "Want to see something fun?" Other Ren asked, walking to the window. Outside, 1,000 Tokyos died 1,000 ways. Purple mist in one, fire in another. In some, the buildings simply forgot how to stand. In others, the people became glass, became smoke, became ideas that no longer held weight. "This is every possible ending," Other Ren narrated with sick fascination. "Every timeline where humanity fails, and in every single one, you're there at the end, the last witness, the final disappointment. Why? The word scraped out like a confession. Because someone has to remember. Other Ren turned, and his face was cracking like old paint. Someone has to carry the weight of what was lost, and who better than someone already used to carrying failure? The apartment exploded into purple fractals. Ren fell through himself, through time, through possibilities that screamed. He saw himself at 7, white hair already marking him as different, kids circling like predators. Grandpa's funeral, rain that tasted like endings. Yui walking away one step after another, each footfall a small apocalypse. His parents' disappointed faces multiplied into infinity. The convenience store clerk's painful smile becoming a death mask. Purple mist taking everyone but leaving him behind. Always behind, always alone. "Stop!" he pleaded, but the visions came faster. Deaths he hadn't died, failures he hadn't failed yet, lives he'd never live. And through it all, the purple mist watched, waited, chose. "You're not the hero," Otherin whispered as reality dissolved. "You're the witness, the record, the last pure human, kept alive not from mercy, but from cruelty, because someone has to remember what was lost." "I don't want to remember." "Then you should have died properly the first time." The dream shattered like glass made of screams. Ren fell up into consciousness, one word tearing from his throat. "I'm still here!" Part 2. Awakening to Complications. The screen